basically you guys voted for a idea for me to collab with my best friend, and you all wanted to hear a story. Just to preface, this is gonna be a lot more of a yapping type of ASMR, so you might as well get cozy right now. And yeah, I do also want to preface for this video, I will be more so using the name Hikari, which is the name I use for my VTubing activities. So just an explanation there. Alright, we're just gonna get into it. I'm going to have my bestie introduce themselves and go from there.
Hi, my name is Sami. I am also known as the VTuber Aurora Liamaris. I have known Hikari for 9 years now, and we'll get into our story of how we met. It's nice to meet all of you.
Yay! Okay, so I guess we can, before getting to how we met, we can talk a little bit about how, I guess, our past before meeting. So I've talked plenty about myself on this channel, but for those who don't know, before being a VTuber, I used to actually do YouTube Let's Plays on my YouTube channel, X Sour Sweets. Used to play a lot of Nintendo stuff. What's funny is I actually knew of Sami while I was doing those activities, because she also was a content creator at the time, but I'll let her talk about that.
So, I originally started as an animator for a couple Fire Emblem YouTubers back in the day. I used to make animatics and MMD animations for them, but eventually I slowly started departing from that scene because I realized I wanted to be a voice actress. So around the time that Hikari found me, it was in that transitional phase where I was still animating, but I was very much starting to go full force with the voice acting thing.
And what's funny is, like, the content I loved watching at the time was like comic dubs or people like, doing fan dubs of anime and stuff like that. So because I had this love for voice actors, that's kind of how I found Sami's channel. I never commented on anything because I'm awkward and I just don't do that. But since I liked that type of content a lot, it led me to finding another voice actor. And funnily enough, that is actually how I ended up meeting Sami. We met Sami through a mutual who I will say right now, we no longer talk to. And that's a whole other can of worms that we are not going to get into at this time.
We call him Voldemort now because he shall not be named.
Exactly, so that's it on that. We can move on to us actually starting to talk. I'll let Sami take the reins on that.
Yeah. So initially on this video with Voldemort, I had found Hikari and I just found her so hilarious, so I left a comment on her video, and I can't exactly remember what I said, but it was something along the lines of like that she was really funny and that I loved her stuff. And then that's when I found out she knew about me, because she was like, oh my god, I watch your stuff too. And that slowly developed in what we call loving each other publicly.
Yeah, to get to like a little bit more detail on that, we would talk and communicate via tweets. We would tweet at each other for the world to see. That was honestly the way we just talked at the time. And slowly we ended up, I guess more so you snuck into my DMs on Twitch, and that freaked me out, and I was awkward. Eventually we transitioned to Twitter DMs, and then eventually after time, we finally talked on Discord.
And I am just going to say right now that whole debacle of getting Discord was insane, because back in the day I did not use Discord. I was actually using mostly Facebook Messenger for my now husband, but at the time was my boyfriend. And we had just started using Discord at the time. And I remember him telling me, like, listen, you have like this great friendship with Hikari. I don't want you to give that up just because you can't break down this barrier. So I made the effort to offer my Discord to her. And I remember I was on the bus when it all happened, because I took public transport at the time. And I had accidentally called her.
also freaking out internally because I knew she had these walls and these barriers, and the last thing I wanted to do was to, like, you know, be too pushy and make her, like, distance herself. So when she did that, I was like, is that something she would like to do in the future? I'm just gonna ask just in case, so I know the boundaries, and, like, you know, if she doesn't like that, to, like, never offer it ever again. And surprisingly, she was okay with it. So eventually, we had our first call.
Yeah, and it was one of the wildest experiences because I had to keep my voice down at the time, since I was, in fact, once again on public transportation. But it just blossomed into this full, like, conversation between us, because at that point we had only talked over text. We had never talked over the phone. So all these topics that we couldn't exactly talk over text, we were finally able to kind of voice them, and it was a very great experience. And unfortunately at the time, I did not do a face reveal. My face is out there for the record. But at the time, I did not do the face reveal, and I was getting artwork commissioned. And in the whip, I didn't realize that there was a picture of me and my husband in the corner. So I sent that to Ikari, not realizing what was there.
And the thing is, I didn't know if I should have mentioned it, so I didn't mention it. I kind of kept it quiet because I was like, oh, she probably didn't mean to do that, because I feel like she would have said something, and I didn't want to be the person to, like, give attention to it, because then, like, what if that, like, turned her away from me and was like, oh no, I can't talk to this person anymore. Eventually, Sami did notice the picture in the corner and mentioned it, and I was like, yeah, I saw it, but, like, I was so scared. I was like, this is it, the friendship's over. I don't know what to do. But thankfully she wasn't like that. She was like, you know, we laughed it off, and now it's a story we tell.
Yeah, and it was so funny to me because I was like, oh my god, usually, like, I considered that when I sent stuff around at the time, and I was just like, well, I guess I'm more trusting of Ikari than I thought because I said that. And eventually through this, we got closer and closer and closer, and there was actually one point that we were planning on meeting, but it was in the year of our Lord and Savior, 2020.
aka COVID, and you know, everything shut down. Like, travel was so hard. You couldn't even travel outside the country, and, you know, gotta be careful and stuff, so we could not meet, unfortunately, because, yeah, COVID was not a good time, especially, I mean, for anyone, it was not a good time, especially essential workers. We both worked through COVID as essential workers, and we can say it was not a fun time. There was just a lot of chaos going on during the time.
It was one of the hardest experiences that we had to go through, and to be honest, it affected us so much that there were points that we weren't even talking because we just were so tired from everything that was happening. But as you could tell, we built up our friendship stronger than ever, and then we ended up playing Dungeons and Dragons together.
And I do think because of Dungeons and Dragons, we did, like, kind of get closer, and actually got Sami into Dungeons and Dragons, which is funny because her husband loves it. He runs games a lot, so it was kind of surprising that she never really, I guess, showed an interest enough to play, but I was really obsessed at the time, so I dragged her into it, and I think she is even more obsessed with it than I am nowadays.
Yeah, to put it mildly, my VTubing persona is actually based on the very first D&D character that I ever played alongside Ikari. And nowadays, for context for you guys, I work in special education, and I use Dungeons and Dragons as a tool to help kids, because when you go through D&D, you really have to think about how your character would react. But when you think about how your character would react, you're technically thinking about how you react. And it's been a great tool, honestly. And I adore D&D in general so much, so I have all the thanks in the world for this girl for dragging me right into this obsession.
Heck yeah. So, to segue into VTubing, Sami used her first D&D character as her VTubing persona, and then my VTubing persona isn't exactly a D&D character, but has a lot of D&D like features and like, I guess, world aesthetics when it comes to that. So technically our characters come from like the same world, so that's pretty cool. But through VTubing, we've been able to do a lot. I do want to preface that I was a VTuber first before Sami. Sami was on the fence about it for a long time. She actually used to stream before I even streamed, but she did like different stuff without like a, like a VTuber, because I guess back then that wasn't really a thing. So it's kind of crazy how eventually through watching me do VTubing and then playing D&D, she decided to also get into the VTuber world. And we've been able to do a lot. I mean, we can talk about the first like charity, like that was the second charity event for me. Yeah, so I did a Pokemon Solak with Sami. We played Fire Red and Leaf Green. If you don't know what a Solak is, just look up Nuzlocke. It's basically playing Pokemon on hard mode, but as a co-op version. And we met all the goals like really fast. So we were like trying to think of like what else we can do. And eventually Sami had a good idea.
So at the time I was actually preparing for my own VTuber debut, and for context, I originally started as Hikari's moderator for Twitch streams, and you will still see me moderating whenever she decides to do more ASMR streams, I guess. But at the time I was preparing for my own debut, and I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna bite the bullet because everyone's been donating so much, and I offered to debut slightly early during this charity event. And it was a really good choice because we ended up raising a lot for Gamers Outreach, and I ended up debuting really early, which was honestly kind of magical. Again, I was very on the fence of becoming a VTuber just because I didn't know if it was going to work out, but in that moment I knew that like, yeah, this is going to work out.
Yeah, and it worked out for her. She still like streams nowadays. I will put all the links to her socials in the description below, so if you want to check her out, I definitely recommend it. It's a very fun and chaotic time over there, so please do. I also do want to edit what I said earlier. So it wasn't the Solak where you did the debut. It was actually my first Nuzlocke. I did Pokemon Ruby, because by the time I did the Solak, you were already debuted, but we did do a charity event together.
That's right.
Yeah. It just, everything gets mumbled. You jumbled in my head. But yeah, to reiterate, the first time I did a charity event for Gamers Outreach was my Pokemon Ruby Nuzlocke, and we were reaching the goals really fast, and Sami offered to do that, and it was fun, honestly. It really was. It was like great. And like we said before, we had planned to meet in 2020, but that didn't work out. But we then met in 2024, correct?
2024, yeah.
Yes. So, not to get too into it, but Sami had a change in career paths. She actually went to school for coding, graduated. It wasn't really for her. I gave her some suggestions about working with kids, because she always loved working with kids. She always like would tell me stories about, oh, I saw a cute kid today and stuff, and I was like, wait, you like kids? Why don't you work with kids and like, make a difference in their lives? Because like I have experience, like, I was a kid, and like obviously we were all kids, but like when I was a kid, I had a lot of things I was going through. I was like in and out of the hospital, and there were these child life specialist people who work with helping kids kind of work through that kind of stuff and kind of distract them from what's going on. I was like, I feel like Sami would be really good at that. So I was drawing off these ideas, and she actually really thought it was a good idea and a good fit, so she went back to school and didn't exactly go down that same path, but now works out of school. She said earlier it's a child and youth care specialist.
I work as a educational assistant.
Yeah.
My degree title is child and youth care, so yes, technically means I could work in any sector involving kids, provided it isn't teaching. But these days I actually work in special education, just because it's become kind of my specialty. So it's the cases like autism, ADHD, all those kind of cases. But Hikari was the one who opened that door for me, and one thing that I talked to her about, I was like, it would be kind of interesting if you were there when I got my diploma.
when she said that, I was like, okay, you know what? I'll make it happen. And I basically like put it in my head, like, hey, I should request these days off. And thankfully, at the time, like the year 2024, I actually got a new job. And you know what? Before I, accepted a job, I told him, hey, I need these days off because I'm gonna be, going out to see my friend for the graduation. Thankfully, since, usually when you're a new hire, they kind of let you do whatever if you have pre-planned vacations, usually. So I had no issue getting those days off. And then we met, and I flew over, and she was, I went through the doors, and she was right there with a big old sign. And she goes up to me and hugs me and says the funniest thing ever. And I'll let her say it because it's so funny. We joke about it to this day.
So, among tears, because I'm crying that my best friend is finally in front of me, I couldn't think straight. So the first thing I had ever said to her was, "You're real."
And that took me by surprise because, typically, I was expecting there to be like, oh my god, you're here, or like, hey, it's so good to see you, or so good to meet you. The last thing I expected was her to say you're real, because I feel like, she, at this point, she knew what I look like we've sent pictures before. It's not like we have never seen each other. I've seen her, she's seen me. So like, it's kind of obvious that I'm real, at least I would hope. But at the same time, Sami is such a silly person that it kind of was so fitting for her to say something so funny. But it was so visceral, it was so real. Like, she wasn't joking about it, she wasn't saying it for the LOLs. Like, that was legitimately all that would like come out of her mouth at the moment. So honestly, now we just kind of joke, and when we see each other in person, we kind of try to say you're real, and it's just kind of inside joke now, honestly.
Yeah, it's so funny. Last year when she came to visit me, because at this point we've made it an annual thing where she'll come stay with my family and visit. It's kind of a contest to see who could say you're real first, and last year she gave me a big hug and then whispered right in my ear, "You were real."
But this year, currently, as I'm recording this, we're together, if that wasn't already obvious. Today's actually the last day of my trip here, so sad, but she said it first this time when I saw her at the airport. So we'll see who wins next year, but yeah, we're right sitting next to each other, that's why we're recording this. So yeah, but to kind of wrap this up really nicely, I guess we can talk a little bit about, like, kind of reflecting on this friendship, and I'll let Sami go first.
So, one thing I will say is that, and she's gonna get embarrassed that I say this, she was the first healthy friendship that I ever had in my entire life. A lot of the friendships I've had over the years, it kind of felt like I was the only one putting in effort into the friendship, and that if I were to suddenly leave, it wouldn't necessarily matter. But in this friendship, I've always found that, like, Hikari has always treated me the same. Like, if I put in some energy, she would put the energy right back. And it felt like, oh my god, I have someone who actually wants to be around me, and in a lot of regards fully understands, like, some of the experiences that I've been through. And I cannot thank her enough. There's often a concept of platonic soulmates, and one thing I can say with full confidence, she is my platonic soulmate. And I cannot thank her enough for being, like, my best friend, and I cannot wait to see what life holds for both of us, honestly.
Okay, I'm trying not to get, like, embarrassed, because, I don't want to be loud and ruin this whole video, but I'm freaking out, but okay. Okay. Okay, so, like, on my part, I think this is the most real of a friendship I've had with someone, especially someone of the same gender as me. We both identify as female. Because, like, when you grow up, at least, I'm not sure, maybe you don't, but when I grew up, I always watched movies about, the two girls going out shopping, and, just having fun, hanging out. I never had that growing up. I never had, like, a friendship in person where I could just do that and be silly with anyone. I've had good friendships, like, online and stuff, but never, like, in person. So when I first met Sami, we got to do those girly things, like, put on makeup and go out, dress cute, match outfits, do a lot of shopping and squeal and be silly. And that was like, oh my god, the stuff of the movies and stuff I watched growing up is actually real. It does exist. So I'm very thankful that Sami creates this environment for me where I can kind of just live out my I don't know, my childlike dreams, I guess, in a sense, or things I couldn't do when I was younger. And I feel like both of us are healing because of that. And she's such a nice friend, very nice, kind soul, looking out for everyone. And I am very thankful that I have someone like that in my life. And I really do hope that, everyone can have someone like that in their life, because it's life changing, and I'm forever thankful to have her as my best friend. And I hope that life continues to treat her well, because she deserves it. And we'll see how far we go, and continue to lean on each other until the end of time, hopefully, and maybe in the next life, if that's a thing.
I'm trying not to react too much, but I'm partially crying right now, guys. Do you see it?
Yeah, I see it.
The tears. I'm gonna leave you guys on a funny little note about us. Whenever we leave each other in person, we leave each other with a letter. And to be honest, I think this is the second time I've cried today. But worth it. All the tears are worth it.
Hey, it is what it is. We also had to deal with a power outage in the morning, so that was fun.
Oh yeah, that was not good.
Yeah, but by the time this video's out, I'm gonna be safe and at home, and the trip would have been over. I don't know when it's coming out exactly, but it'll come out when it comes out. So
Yeah.
just so you know, it's not like, oh yeah, I'm still hanging out with her. No, by the time this comes out, I'm probably gonna be home, more than likely.
If you guys ever want to hear kind of collabs between me and her in the future, I feel like both of us would be down to do that kind of thing again, even if it's like a long distance version. Because honestly, this was really fun.
Yeah, we have a lot of ideas that we can do, over the phone, or do, she records her thing, I record my thing, or whatever, or even in person. So if this is something you would like to see again, let us know in the comments below. But for now, we'll let you guys go. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully it was relaxing or interesting. Maybe you learned something about me. You definitely learned something about Sami, more likely. Please go follow her and check her content out as well. And I guess we'll see you next time in the next video. But bye for